between humans and animals. Each year, millions of animals end up in shelters, waiting for someone to give them a second chance. Your compassion can change a life. Please visit AmericanHumane.org to learn more. Thank you.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Them's fighting words. Isn't that a redneck phrase? I've heard that before. I can't remember where I've heard it, but I've heard it before. So we're going to use it to start the fast lane because why not? Them's fighting words. The idea that Liberty Flames head football coach Jamie Chadwell would want to quit Liberty University. Now, yes, we stirred the pot to get our usher on for a moment in the fast lane. When we posted this past weekend that Coastal Carolina has fired Tim Beck, their former head football coach, who is, I guess, now their former head football coach, but the one who replaced Hugh Freeze. You thought it was bad with Freeze at Liberty. Try being Coastal. It's really been more of a struggle. They looked like the victims of that Revolutionary War scene reenactment that was done at halftime of the JMU game, which I don't even know what to say, TJ, but that alone in and of itself might go down as like an all-time absurdly but yet appropriately cultural fit halftime show that's ever been done. Like most have bands, they honor somebody at halftime. My favorite is when it's like corporate sponsors, which I get, but to Liberty's credit, they're smart enough to do it in between quarters rather than at halftime when nobody's around to pay attention. But the thing of it is, that might be one of my favorite all-time halftime ceremonies ever. Did you see that, by the way?
Yeah, I saw the video. That was unique, and I like that it was because a majority of the war was fought in the winter. So, I mean, it was pretty cool.
So very much. I found it appropriate, at least, and obviously worth a humorous moment. But just because there is a Liberty Flames contingent out there that would like to see Hugh Freeze return to Liberty, rekindle the past, bring the band back together again. And just because Hugh Freeze may or may not be very skilled at dropping those nuggets, Jimmy Sexton influence. Obviously Sexton is very good at coaching people up on how to drop the appropriate breadcrumbs to exact maximum leverage in any situation. Hugh Freeze to leave Liberty. Lane Kiffin in our recent past. Insert a bunch of other clients if you want to keep getting snarky about it. That does not mean that everybody just wants to go back to their prior destination and rekindle the flame. Pun intended. Sure, some people may want to do that. But if anything, I came away from the Liberty Flames losing streak, first of all, more convinced that we are entering in this day and age, and the amount of resources the Flames devote to football and athletics relative to their Conference USA peers, relative to their in-state group of 5 peers, JMU, ODU is obviously Liberty's in that category too, and also relative to the rest of the group of 5 outside of Memphis, FedEx Boosted, Boise, South Florida, and Tulane. Liberty puts more in. More investment, more expectation. Just the nature of it. So I am more convinced that 2026 is going to be a hot seat year for Jamie Chadwell. But I'm also more convinced of hearing Jamie Chadwell that this is not sounding like somebody that is anxious to get out of Liberty and go back to Coastal because it's the easy way out. I get it. Their family ties to that area for plenty of people in Chadwell's family. There's a pull from that. I understand it. But there's also a competitive juice in the fact that, let's not kid ourselves, Coastal paid Chadwell, $800,000. With the pay raise, it was just over $1 million a year. Liberty at $4 million a year clearly trumps that. So you're not going to, in a business sense, walk away from that when you don't have a viable landing spot. And even if you were to think, well, would he go to USF? Would he go to some other coastal-based area that's not Coastal Carolina? Because, again, family seems to like the beach area. I get that. Would he do that? You got to have had a good streak, not a bad streak. 4 games to lose the year, 12-0, then 8-3, then 4-8 for Liberty. Not exactly the type of season where you're going to go. That's not the trajectory where you're going to go. But part of it is also this. I would want my coach to not be flirting around with that when times get tough. I'd want my coach saying what he said, Jamie Chadwell did, after the Liberty Flames' third consecutive overtime loss, this time the regular season finale against Kennesaw State this past Saturday.
I'm disappointed in the outcome. I'm not disappointed in our effort, but I'm also probably have more resolve going through the last 4 weeks of seeing where I think we're at our lowest, and we had opportunities in the last 4 games to win every game. And if you do, you're playing for, a conference championship next week. So I've got more resolve in knowing that what we got to do to clean things up and get us back to where I feel like we can be a championship program. So
that in and of itself, TJ, does that sound like a coach that is ready to go the flight route in fight or flight? Or does he sound like a coach who's ready to go the fight route? If you had to cast your vote, which one?
I think that's the guy that's ready to move on and go to the next year with the same program he's been coaching for the last 2 years.
I would agree with that. And he has mentioned this a number of different times. It does not sound like a coach who is checked out on Liberty. Does it sound like a coach who might be burdened by the fact that there have to be changes? Sure. One of them happened voluntarily earlier today. Willie Korn, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, stepping away from football altogether. Business career. By the way, I have no knowledge of this, but Willie Korn strikes me as the type of guy that could be your business person during the day and high school football coach on the side. Like, he does have a unique ability to engage with younger people and as a younger personality. Not saying that anybody in the area is just going to flat out hire the guy, but maybe he would leave the area. Again, he's from South Carolina originally, but strikes me as that type of personality. And it's not for everybody. You're essentially a developmental program at a place like Liberty now. Your best players are going to get poached. Many people speculate Evan Dickens could get poached. Jamie Chadwell even alluded that it was going to be hard to keep Evan Dickens after another Dickens masterpiece this past Saturday in the loss to Kennesaw State.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to keep him. I'll tell you that. That's part of the problem when a guy breaks out like that and has all that. So, hopefully we can get him back.
Hopefully we can get him back.
It's not going to happen. They just lost Lee. They're losing Dickens.
I mean, again, I would be shocked if he comes back because at the end of the day, a bigger school is going to be able to offer more
dollar bills, y'all.
Relatively speaking. Liberty is opted into rev share, but are they at the full percentage of rev share? Are they going I'll just use them because is LU going the LSU route, where you would presume that there may be rev share and then there may be, use air quotes for this, return of the bagman, if you will, NIL opportunities. Said tongue-in-cheek for those listening, VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM Lynchburg, and Ask Your Smart Speaker, Open VTR and Sports, or Fastlane Ed Lane if you're listening in podcast form, because
and guess what? We keep receipts
right there. And we use the quotes for Fastlane Ed Lane and VTR and Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. Like, there is an element to that. I am with you, TJ. You basically write Dickens as good as gone. I would say he is. I would be shocked if he returns to Liberty. I'd never say definitively, because maybe you make that player your priority. But at some point, if you're Liberty, as great of a running back as he is, do you risk going the Duke route? And I bring that up because Duke spent a boatload of money on Darian Mintz at quarterback, but they really didn't compliment him with a great offensive line and offensive pieces. So you have to consider that. And the reality for Liberty is when you're in the spot where you have to make personnel evaluation decisions, you've got to adjust your budget accordingly, which means you're probably going to keep guys and you're probably going to lose guys.
From a personnel standpoint, hopefully you can keep a lot of your returning guys that played for you. Hope they want to stay and get us turned around. You got to work through that. Then we got to add. So there's a lot of acquisition. We got to make sure we add the right people to fill some needs that we need to where we need to get better. I think first and foremost is that, and if we can hold on to a core group. If you can hold on to your core group, I do think we got some good young players that played a lot this year that are coming that I think we feel pretty solid about.
But that's the reality of Liberty's situation, as Jamie Chadwell mentioned after the loss. Like, they're in a spot where you're having to do a lot of evaluation. They will need to turn over the roster. There is going to be de facto coaching staff changes that were just initially started today with the departure that was announced, I guess, by Pete Thamel, reported by. I guess it may not be official, although we'll get word tomorrow when Jamie Chadwell has his National Signing Day press conference. By the way, I mean, can we just move all this stuff back to the end of the season? Like, I mean, the coaches complain about it. Have one window for the portal in the offseason. Have it basically be like January 20th to February 10th. Okay, we don't get these guys. By the way, okay, I've got to take a detour for a second.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
We need to reevaluate the offseason in college football. Why do we have to have National Signing Day early? So that guys can come in and be ready for spring football when the odds of them playing as a freshman are not very big, because if the team has an immediate need, they're not going to want to develop and trust a freshman. They're going to go the transfer portal route and upgrade that way based on immediate needs. So let's not kid ourselves here. And let's move the transfer portal window back to the end of the season. If these guys are bouncing from 5 schools in 5 years type deal, or 4 schools in 5 years, or whatever analogy you want to use, they're going to the highest bidder. They're not getting full semesters at schools anyway. Let's let the spring semester be a light semester, if you want to call it that. They can take summer school courses, have a fall semester, and cobble together whatever degree they potentially can. And part of your transfer to a school is you have the opportunity to go back there to get college credits and take classes upon the exhaustion of your eligibility. Again, uniform policies, that requires making them union. That's a topic for a different day. But we can totally reevaluate this offseason. But as we conveniently segue coming back from our detour,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
The reality is that the Flames are in a spot where there are a lot of evaluations they have to do with their program. But again, Jamie Chadwell speaking after the loss to Coastal Carolina, the final of a 4-game losing streak that ended the season from 1-4 to 4-4 to 4-8. The final of a 3 consecutive overtime loss skid to end the season. Reevaluate your offseason approach. Doesn't quite sound like somebody who's ready to check out.
With the ones that are returning, they have to be better detail-wise. They got to be better practice-wise. They got to be better mentality-wise. So we got to work on that. And then I got to take a big look at overall what we're doing scheme-wise, what we're doing off-season-wise, what we're doing in the weight room, what we're doing in all those things. I got to take an overview.
There are a lot of things that coaches will cede if they're ready to jump ship and get out of there. Nothing that we've played from Jamie Chadwell indicates that's the case. Again, I may be fooled and look like an absolute idiot. It won't be the first time. It won't be the last time that it's the case. And by the end of this, you may just look back and listen back at Fastlane, Midlane, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receiving.
And give the Billy Madison retort.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
But I am willing to hedge my bets that Jamie Chadwell will be back at Liberty. And the thing of it is, I think a lot of this is rooted in the fact that fans are justifiably disappointed. 12-0 2 years ago, 8-4 last year, but there seemed to be a lot of internal strife. This year, the chemistry was supposedly better, but the talent was not. Clearly, it wasn't up to standards, nor was the mesh of the talent in the scheme, which is why they went 4-8. I don't think they're super far off, but they have to make changes. But I think there's a group of fans that, again, I get the frustration, but changes versus blowing it up. Do we need to reconstruct the program a little bit? Do we need to go in and do some remodeling? Or do we need to press the detonating button and just detonate the entire thing? And Jamie Chadwell, I think he is right in this sense.
You got to make sure that you're not blowing it up just to blow up. You got to think, what are the areas that we definitely need to improve? And are there things that is, hey, this works. We just have to do it better. And so I've been thinking a lot about that since we've been 1-4, to be honest. Like what do we got? What do we have to improve? Is it a complete blow up? And so I'll take some time here. Obviously, we'll have some player meetings next week. And start working through that, getting ready for the portal, and then we'll have some, coaches meetings as well, and we'll start figuring out the next steps we need to do to put a program where we want it to be.
It's having a winning game plan, and ultimately, it seems like Jamie Chadwell has his mind planted at Liberty University as opposed to greener pastures. I don't know where it would be financially, but maybe the idea of less stressful pastures somewhere else. And again, when you're the one paid $4 million a year to be the head coach, you're the one who has to make tough decisions. You're the one who has to navigate the changing landscape of college athletics. People are not feeling sorry when you're put in that financial advantageous position. And I think that's totally reasonable for people to have that level of expectation when you're paid as a high group of 5 coach, the way that Liberty compensates their coaches. Meanwhile, If you're in a spot where you're compensated well, but you want to hold on to that money a little bit more, stocking stuffers await you at InsaneRadioDeals.com. TJ's spot, the Yard on 5th Street, has it. 801 Raw Bar is now part of Oliver's on Rivermont. But those gift certificates listed for either location, the best part is they're good at either location. So you can still get them at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Plus, so many other great items like a seaofred.com club memberships. So you can get VIP inside access into the Liberty Flames for a special deal. And oh, by the way, we'll have John Manson from A Sea of Red tomorrow in the Fast Lane to discuss all of these topics, which we can kind of get to in the Fast 5 at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So we mentioned this about Dante Lee, the Liberty Flames wide receiver, who has announced via his agent that he is entering the transfer portal. First of all, we are not going to get to every player who is transferring to and from a school until I would say mid to late January. Am I off base, TJ, or is that the smart idea? Because at that point, the rosters won't be fully set, but they will by and large be set. And it's much easier to do a complete evaluation at that time. There may be bigger name players that are worth mentioning at Tech. I think they'll by and large keep whoever they want because Franklin's there and the money will be there for them. But Virginia, they're just going to lose a lot of guys to exhausted eligibility. But JMU and Liberty, by and large, I'm waiting until we see what the new roster makeups are going to be at those places, as well as assistant coaching staff changes at Liberty and, by all accounts, head coaching staff changes at JMU, which we'll get to in a moment.
No, yes, I think you're going to see a lot of players wait till after championships and even playoffs before they enter the transfer portal and see who's leaving where, who's leaving the big programs, and do I have a shot to fill that spot?
You know, here's the other thing. When you see that Dante Lee is entering the transfer portal and that report is out there via his representation, just read into that what that will. If the agent is leaking that information out, why do you hire an agent if you're an athlete? Again, let's go back to the basics for a second. Any sport, when you're hiring an agent, it is generally to get you something that you would not normally be able to get independent of his or her representation. Most notably,
Dollar bills, y'all.
much more than. So the reality is that's what you're seeking. If you're in that particular spot, you would be naive to not think that these players are looking for the best opportunity. And if you've had a good year, like Evan Dickens at Liberty, like Dante Lee at Liberty, I would presume like Alonzo Barnett at JMU when Bob Chesney leaves, there will just be enough people out there that are willing to get you to a point where that's the direction that they are going to go. Speaking of Bob Chesney has emerged as the target of UCLA in their coaching search. Look, I have serious questions about the financial commitment to UCLA when it comes to football. Honestly, I think the guy could have stuck around at JMU, had another successful season, and waited for some other better gig to open up during the offseason. NC State is one that comes to mind, not saying you couldn't just leave UCLA after a year or two and go to a place like that. Wisconsin could open up, although many people think Jason Eck, who's a Wisconsin guy after a great year at New Mexico, will take that job instead. If he has another good year there and Wisconsin has another bad year, you'd presume that's going to happen. So I think there would be better opportunities that pop up. That being said, 5-year deal, I get it. I understand it. Like vibes-wise, Chesney seems like a fit at UCLA. And the idea of Chesney being distracted before the conference championship game, I know we beat the dead horse on this, but not only is he distracted, but the players are often distracted as well because they may be looking to follow him or wondering where their next opportunity will be. And in particular, these spots like JMU or Texas, North Texas, or Tulane, who are all in conference championship games with coaches who are going to their next gigs. North Texas's Eric Morris to Oklahoma State. What's his name? Summerall from Tulane to Florida, and then Chesney from JMU to UCLA. Although he has not signed the contract, it's kind of like the Hugh Freeze to Auburn deal a couple of years ago. He didn't sign it before the New Mexico State game, but the terms were all laid out there, and he had effectively allowed his agent, same one in this case, Jimmy Sexton, to agree to the deal to him. That's how these things generally work and operate. So let's not kid ourselves here. But as far as the distraction element, it's amazing because 3 years ago, TJ, Liberty was understandably distracted by the departure of Hugh Freeze. I just think the landscape has changed. I don't think these players are distracted because they're always playing their games now with the knowledge of I have to either play to keep my roster spot or I'll get cut, basically, or I am playing to upgrade my position. So I'm going to go out there and try to have the best, if nothing else, individual game I can so that I can show what I can do in another opportunity somewhere else. Meanwhile, gigs, opportunities, and too little too late in
Number 3.
apparently the ACC is now trying to make their case for Miami to make the college football playoff. This week, they are re-airing the week 1 game and will do so at least 13 times between Notre Dame and Miami. I don't know what they're trying to do in terms of the voodoo and the luck of the number 13 being involved in this process. Maybe they should have taken this campaign sooner. I go a step further. It's not just using the ACC network, because you know who owns the ACC network? ESPN. You know what they also own and operate? The SEC. And outside of Notre Dame, pretty much everybody that Miami would be competing with for a spot has some kind of conference tie to ESPN. It's on the ACC's leadership, starting at the top with Mr. Don't Want to Ruffle the Feathers, Rock the Boat, Jim Phillips, to, wait for it, rock the boat. You're paid the money you're paid to vouch for your conference and vouch for your schools. And if that means pimping the brand to anybody and everybody who will listen here in the fast lane, bigger media outlets, of which there are many, you need to be doing that 24/7 leading up to this. To me, this is way too little, way too late for Miami. I'm skeptical that Miami will get into the playoff. I'm skeptical they'll be in the same spot where they're grouped the same as Notre Dame. And if they are, they'll also probably be grouped the same as an Oklahoma or an Alabama. So the committee can just say, well, they're all kind of the same. So we picked the ones that we thought was best. Like, there will be some word salading to prevent the ACC from getting an extra team in. And not to mention the fact that the ACC's ridiculous tiebreaker procedure has Duke, even though they never played any of the other 5 schools with whom they're tied for a spot in the ACC championship game against Virginia, they managed to win based on some convoluted tiebreaker scenario. The easy answer to that is the school that's ranked highest in the college football playoff rankings. It may not be fair. Who cares? This is a business. You need to get your best schools and best brands that are out there. And it's why the ACC needs a split from the haves, Miami, Clemson, Florida State. I'll put the financially committed programs like Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina into that boat. Louisville and SMU, oddly enough, I'd actually put them in that camp. And then the rest of them that don't seem to want to be spending on the same level, they can go to their respective conferences. But I know that diatribe is there, but once again, it's brought up because of what the ACC is doing, or shall we say, not doing, to maximize its best position possible. Meanwhile,
Number 2.
I loved the way the Virginia Cavaliers have handled this past weekend. And most notably, they will not be fined for the relaxed field storming following Saturday's win against Virginia Tech. TJ, I don't know if you encountered this when you were trying to go down from the press box at Virginia down to the media availability area. I went down with a couple of minutes left in regulation, and the security guard kind of gave me the quizzical look and then let me onto the field, not remembering that anytime with 5 minutes to go in regulation or less, you can get onto the field if you have a credential. You had to kind of call for backup on that. But then I heard a couple of other people who were trying to hold fans back from rushing the field, and they said, just wait for Virginia Tech to leave so that we don't get fined. And when fans were brushing back in their potentially inebriated, challenged state of comprehension, the security guard wisely said, well, don't you want to avoid the fine so we can put that money to replace Chandler Morris? That to me is the one-liner of the night. That's the era in which we live. You are pleading with your students and fans to not rush the field, or at least to wait to rush the field so that Virginia Tech's personnel can get off the field. Also that you can save money and have that money to buy players. What a world in which we live, but a phenomenal one-liner nonetheless. You want another good QB, we need that money, right? And the fans agreed, and they agreed to withhold rushing the field. Maybe not everywhere, but at least the sections where I was down in Scott Stadium on the home side. Speaking of the Virginia Cavaliers, by the way,
Number 1.
NC State and Virginia will play August 29th in that college football game to open the season down in Brazil. It looks like TCU and North Carolina from Ireland will be the early game as it normally is, because remember, that's 5 to 6 hours ahead of time. So if that's a noon kickoff, fingers crossed we'll be able to bring it for you on the VTRN Sports app. We got a long way to go for that. But if that's going to be the early game, then NC State, Virginia will be a mid-afternoon or a prime time game. And a quick little Google research today reminded me that Labor Day is September 7th, meaning the first college football Saturday is September 5th in all likelihood, meaning Virginia is playing week 0, to which I applaud. More schools in the ACC, more in our backyard, Liberty, JMU, Tech, any of them who want to play that week, go right ahead, because that is unclaimed real estate. And if you're basing how your conference allocates money on these revenue-generating opportunities, I'd want to be in that game if I were a Virginia Cavalier as well. Meanwhile, when we return to the fast lane, being in games in the state semifinals for high school football, 2 schools remain in that camp. Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast slated to discuss that next when he joins us here in the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
It's the final countdown to savings during the Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us. Build with experience. Build with quality. Build with Right Choice.
Jefferson Forest Cavaliers football, presented by Trostball.com, heads back on the road for the VHSL Class 4 state semifinals this Saturday, December 6th. Your Central VA flooring kickoff show starts at 1:30, getting you ready for JF at the Verina Blue Devils. Join us on the Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM Lynchburg, 95.5 FM Bedford, and Open Virginia Talk Radio Network on your smart speaker. JF Football is also presented by Crossroads Family Dentistry, Forest Youth Athletic Association, Meineke Car Care, and the Andy Matthews Insurance Agency.
This holiday season, take a step back in time to the heart of the 1940s. Join us at Cedar Oaks Farm in Bedford, Virginia for The Christmas List, a World War II era radio play recorded live to benefit the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Experience the story of the Bedford boys and their last Christmas before shipping out to serve their country. A moving night of laughter, love, and the true spirit of Christmas, featuring live music, classic sound effects, and a full cast performing just like the golden days of radio.
Jing-a-ling, 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 the night is made for sweet romancing. Ha! Ho! Through the snow we go.
Performances are December 12th and 13th at 7 p.m. and December 14th at 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale now at cedaroaksfarm.com, with proceeds benefiting the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Come share a nostalgic Christmas at Cedar Oaks Farm, where memories, music, and history come alive.
Hi, this is Bill Roth, voice of Virginia Tech football. It's time to start jumping. This is your home for the Hokies, VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the fast lane.
He was our boots on the ground over at Lynchburg City Stadium for the big one this past weekend. An overtime victory, 14-7 LCA against Heritage to claim the VHSL Class 3 Region 3C victory. LCA over Heritage to win that region. And Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast joins us now here in the Fast Lane. Bob, great to be speaking with you. LCA defeats Heritage. There are two sides to this particular angle. First of all, for the Heritage Pioneers, how dejecting is that for a team that put so much into this season, especially the idea of targeting LCA, knowing that LCA justifiably had been the target, and LCA gave them a run, including winning the first game, but couldn't quite get over the hump in overtime, and the one that mattered the most. Not sure if Bob Alvis of the Sports Fight podcast can hear us. We'll try to get him reconnected in just a moment. As we'll disconnect and then reconnect him. There you go, Bob. You got us? Okay, just disconnect Bob and call him back on the phone because we'll just work through that way. As Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast slated to join us just a moment. It's unfortunate because that's going to take a while, I would think, for Heritage to get through. The amount of emotional intensity they put into that. Now, if there's anybody that's good enough to guide them through that, it's Bob. It's not Bob Alvis. He guides us through our coverage. It's Brad Bradley, who is one of the best coaches in the Seminole District. But one of the challenges also is the fact that each year you have to go through arguably maybe the best coaching staff in all of high school football in the Commonwealth of Virginia as well, based upon what we've seen so far. So that's often what you're going to be going up against and really trying to figure out how you're going to pull that off in the next step, in the next direction. By the way, I'm trying to get a number for you so that we can go ahead right there and get you. Do you have his number, TJ? Just
no,
let
I do
me
not.
know. Okay, gotcha. Give me a moment. It is literally every single step that I'm trying to get this number for Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast. Nothing sounds like great live radio when you're trying to pull that off right now. Here you go. Call this number, the one at the top of this list. There we go. Save it in your database too, because I don't know what else to say right now, but go ahead and make that a point to save that while you're looking at it. So you're not looking at me for a second here in the fast lane as we do great play-by-play, sounding like true varsity production here, trying to get Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast on. But the point is, you lose in that type of devastating fashion to a team that you geared up for, beat during the regular season. It shows how close Heritage and LCA are. And I envision that being more the norm going forward. Just because Heritage and LCA, both are programs that are successful, both have good coaching staffs, and both are in a position where they're largely able to retain that. So that's where we get to discuss now. Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast with us in the fast lane. Bob, thank you for working through whatever technical challenges we had and couldn't quite get ironed out on our end. We appreciate you doing that. Meanwhile, Heritage and LCA, they're two sides to that game. From the Heritage side, how gut-wrenching of a loss was that for the Pioneers? I know I'm kind of continuing to pour salt into the wounds of Pioneer fans, and Ty Tracy might give me grief on the morning warm-up. But for Heritage, you put so much into LCA, you beat them in the regular season, but ultimately came yay close, but couldn't quite get over the hump in overtime at City Stadium on Friday night.
I think at the end of the day, and by the way, thanks for having me on, Ed. Sorry about the difficulty. I think at the end of the day, how would you feel if your season doesn't end in overtime, but for 22 kids on that Heritage team, 21 kids, your career ends in overtime? And by the way, it ends to a city rival. It's a sick feeling because, I mean, everybody thought that game, whoever wins that game, was probably going to win the whole thing. I get other people still have some to say about that. But, you know, for Heritage, I'm sure they feel sick. I'm sure they feel sick that they're not playing. And it's not just that you lost, but it's the way that you lost. But, hey, Heritage didn't play as well as they wanted to, but give LCA credit for capitalizing on Heritage mistakes. What gets me is everybody always says, well, Team X didn't play well, Team Y didn't play well. Yeah, I understand that. But guess what? Team A or B has to capitalize on those mistakes because Team X or Team Y cannot play well. Well, if Team A and Team B doesn't play well, it doesn't matter.
Well, you mentioned that the team not playing well for Heritage. Some of this was this always destined to be a close slugfest type game, given how close the teams were, and LCA falling to Heritage by just 2 in the regular season matchup. You had to see this coming, right? That this was going to be another one of these games where it came down to the small margins.
The only thing I didn't see that was coming was the margin was going to be that small, because I think it was like the last 2 or 3 games, the winning team had scored 34. And to go from 34 to 10, that's a little bit different. But give credit to both defenses, LCA's defense, Heritage's defense, both very well. LCA defense was incredible because they had people on the run all night long, in terms of not just, on the run on the scoreboard, but scrambling and things like that. LCA's DBs were doing outstanding coverage on the Heritage wide receivers, and LCA gets to go on and take on Kettle Run. And unfortunately for Heritage, their season, and like I said, some guys' careers. And keep in mind, some guys are not going to be playing college football. They may not play a winter sport. They may not play a spring sport. So literally their athletic careers could be over.
I mean, that's the crazy part about this, is the sting of how it ends for the Heritage Pioneers. What's the vibe with Brad Bradley? I mean, this is a guy that's eternally optimistic. He has a ton of energy. He's great at rallying the troops. Does he let these guys that are returning in particular lean into it and try to work on, if nothing else, comforting the guys whose careers have ended, knowing that you get a chance, if you're a returner, to reset the bar when January rolls around and teams get back to work?
I think the comfort probably ends in January, in terms of, I'm sure if people like Dom Jones, Aiden Slash, people like that who are seniors still stop by and see him, I don't think he's going to, say, get away from me type of thing. But he's going to definitely be focused and invested when he's in the weight room and on the field with those guys, focused and invested. But gosh, I can tell you his heart hurts. Dom Jones, his heart hurts. Aiden Slash's heart hurts. Everybody on that team from Heritage. I mean, you've seen games that are season-ending games for people, and the tears flow. But it's almost different in terms of, a season-ending game in the playoffs, to where you lose essentially in a fifth period. I mean, tears flow and then flow and then flow some more.
Yeah, they do. I mean, you get such a high level of emotion, regardless of how it ends, but especially when your career ends with a loss. And it's odd to say, but the deeper you go, the more it's felt, Bob. Am I off base in that observation? The deeper a team goes, the more they feel that emotion of a loss, the seniors do, because you got closer to your ultimate goal, and therefore it stings more that you didn't get it.
I think you're 100% on the money. 100%, because I can tell you this. I was not athletic and didn't play sports, but I was a high school manager. And when I lost in my senior year, I mean, I was still a part of the team, but when I lost my senior year, it was just like, you just sit there shocked for a few minutes. And the worst thing about all these things is the guys, and for girls sports, those people you build a brotherhood or sisterhood with, when you don't get to go back to practice, it's all over. That's what I don't think a lot of people understand. It's Friday nights are competition, or whatever night you're playing for your respective sport. But Monday, it's really a kick in the gut when after school you go home.
Yeah, it's just a different vibe. That level of structure and purpose, as they say, they're values you can take with you beyond the playing field or the court or wherever your surface of choice is, even if it's the water as a swimmer. But that bond of practicing and all that time that's built up in the struggle to get to game night. Bob, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the other side of that thriller at City Stadium this past Friday. The LCA Bulldogs, they knocked off Heritage. How underrated is the job that Frank Rocco and LCA's coaching staff have done this year? And yes, the seniors on this team wanting to craft their own identity with Gideon Davidson and Easton Ware off to Clemson, wanting to say that, hey, we're not going to let that change the caliber of expectations at LCA. And it wasn't always as smooth, and the victories have certainly not been as robust, but they found ways to win. And you'd imagine that's got to be a credit to them, right?
I think a lot of people had LCA and Heritage as the regional final before the playoffs even started. I said we still need to play the games to figure this out. But look at it this way. LCA has beat the number 3 seed. They beat the number 2 seed, and they beat the number 1 seed. And all these games have been on the road. You can argue that Heritage is not really a road game, but it's not a home game. Last time I checked, LCA doesn't play their home games at City Stadium. So LCA has won 3 games on the road. They'll have a shot this week to win their 4th on the road to get to the state championship, which would be more in their backyard at Liberty, but still, I mean, it's not the home field that they always play on. So hats off to LCA. And like I said, you can talk about Heritage as much as you want. And don't get me wrong, Heritage is a very good team. But if Heritage makes mistakes, LCA still needs to capitalize on the mistakes. And I thought Luke Gaither played a lot better game this time around. I don't think he played bad the first time, but this time it felt like he was more relaxed. And he was on the run, too, for his life a lot on Friday night as well. So I think from 1 to 40, you got to give LCA credit all across the board. They might have more than 40 people, by the way.
Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast with us here in the Fast Lane, high school sports expert, and stopping by with us. LCA, are they the favorite now that they've made it to the semifinals? And yes, they have to go on the road again to Kettle Run, but they also have championship DNA that nobody else has.
You hit it. They have championship DNA that no one else has. I still think that people feel like whoever wins the region is a champion. It always runs through them until they're out. LCA is not out. So does it run through LCA? Maybe a little bit. And I'm sure Kettle Run's got some things to say about that in the memory bank too from what happened in the years past. But, I still think it probably runs a little bit through LCA, which means LCA is going to get everybody's best shot. I'm a Yankees fan, and I compare it to the Yankees because when you're that quote-unquote hated team or the team that everybody wants to beat, you always get the best shot.
Bob, I'll take a gloating moment for a second and say that we at Lane's Lines at LCA is a favored, slight, but a favored over Heritage because of the coaching ability to adjust on the revenge factor. And that's not a knock on Brad Bradley. It's more a testament to just how good Frank Rocco and the LCA staff are. You can take
Good
your
thing
own.
you got overtime out of it then.
Hey, exactly. I guess that helped. Meanwhile, though, you can take your victory lap. You're the one who said that you thought JF had a chance to have maybe their stiffer test might have been at John Hanley as opposed to at GW Danville. I was skeptical until obviously calling Jefferson Forest Cavalier football presented by TrostBall.com on WIQO 100.9 FM and the other stations, Virginia's talk station, if you check out the VTRN Sports app and want to listen to JF football games. How surprised were you, though, that LCA didn't just win, but that it was that decisive at GW Danville 49-7?
Yeah, when I told you JF would win, I don't think I said they would win by 42. So I'm going to have to take away some of the flowers you gave me and give them back to you or a needy home in need that doesn't have flowers. But, yeah, when you return the opening kickoff, which is what Charleston Harris did, and that can set a tone. When you return a kick early in the game, which JF did, that can set a tone. And, sometimes, and we talk about this in college and pro a lot, but it's trickling down too. How are you going to respond to when you get punched in the mouth? You can either punch back, not literally, but you can either punch back and fight back, or you can, I don't want to say go into a shell, but you can kind of become a turtle and crawl back in. I mean, did GW crawl back in? I don't know that they crawled back in, but JF, I think, is a lot better than people probably give them credit for. They're going to have a real tough matchup this week in Richmond, but so far so good, and they have done what they've wanted to do, but nobody's done the ultimate goal yet, which is win a state title. And I can guarantee you, every team playing still feels like mission is incomplete.
Yeah, you've got that sense of desperation from the teams that are remaining. You mentioned the uphill battle for Jefferson Forest. You give them a puncher's chance at Varina to keep this game close and interesting.
Everybody that's alive gets a puncher's chance. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody today and I used the exact term puncher's chance. Everybody that's alive has a puncher's chance. I don't want to be punching when I'm down 14-0 though, because that can get hard. I think everybody has to keep it within a score if they possibly can. Varina is very, very good. And the other thing too, Ed, and I talked about it just a minute ago, everybody's goal I feel like is incomplete right now, but nobody can say, hey, we're satisfied yet because we've gotten farther than we got last year, or we've gotten farther than we've gotten in our time here. If you have that attitude, then you're going to be going home. And I don't think JF has that attitude, which is good for him. But Varina has got a lot of talent.
There's quite a bit, and Jefferson Forest is going to have to account for that. They did well at GW, but the step up is going to be obvious this week. Meanwhile, Bob, we'll step away from high school football for high school basketball. It's gotten underway. Early season observations. We're a game in, or am I off my rocker with that question? Because we probably need a week or two to really get a gauge on where teams are.
I think we need a month. I don't think you can pay attention to December basketball, to be honest with you. I mean, they count. Wins and losses count, but it's funny because I've always said that, like January basketball is where you find yourself. But when you're playing district games in the first, 3 weeks of the season, nobody else is going to side with what Bob just said, by the way. They're going to say they count from day one. It's a different world because you have all your guys now. I was listening to when we were at Media Day a few weeks ago, and you asked DJ Best, when did he acclimate his guys from other seasons? And he said June. And, the thing about it is you can do that nowadays with everybody being able to go year round. It's hard to do that back in, quote, the day, but you can do it now. And we'll see. I mean, a lot of teams are getting underway. I think, the scrimmages are done, but it's not real until it's real, if that makes sense. Last night became real for some people. Tonight's becoming real for other people. Everybody's going to have one under their belt by the week's end, if not two. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously, if you look at the Seminole, I think EC Glass and LCA are at the top of the heap. You're chasing after them, but don't think Matt Klein and DJ Best are going to say, "Yeah, nobody can touch us. We're that good," because both those guys are Hawks. They're going to prepare like no other, and basketball should be a fun season, much more fun than what I think a lot of people think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a chance where you can get different winners that pop up on different nights, the ability to balance that out, especially when we're feeling out Seminole and Dogwood District action. Somebody who has his finger on the pulse all the time with the Sports Buffet podcast is Bob Alvis, and he's with us in the Fast Lane. Bob, thank you for your time today and working through those technical difficulties. We are technically very happy to have you in the Fast Lane, and even non-technically, we're just always glad to have you.
I guess I better keep my fingers healthy because if I ever break my finger, I don't know what gets on the pulse.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Good point from Bob Alvis.
Appreciate that.
Indeed. Bob Alvis with us here in the Fast Lane. When we return, some of your feedback. We will mix vodka and milk, Lane Kiffin feedback, and Liberty Flames football direction feedback. You can figure out which one counts for vodka and which one counts for milk. Insert or save your Lane Kiffin jokes till we return here in the Fast Lane, VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Sushi and sake. It's a fun blend. Come experience New Yamada of Forest Sushi and Sake, the same fresh sushi you've come to expect, complemented by our new Asian fusion menu, highlighting the freshest filet mignon, plus pork belly and chicken, and grilled seafood like lobster, scallop, shrimp, tuna, and lobster with an Asian flair. Your meat is grilled and prepared to perfection every time, and our crab rangoon is the perfect start to every meal. Come experience New Yamada of Forest Sushi and Sake, 205 Bristol Mill Drive, in Forest behind the Graves Mill Center.
Hey, Hokie fans, are you still getting your Hokie sports news from other outlets, or even worse, the newspaper? Well, you're missing out. Tech Sideline has assembled the largest and most talented team to ever cover Virginia Tech athletics. If you want Hokie sports coverage that is second to none and will make you the smartest fan at the tailgate, subscribe to TechSideline.com for just $12 a month or $120 a year. Tech Sideline, all Hokie, all the time, period. Subscribe today at TechSideline.com.
In most things, it's hard to go from ordinary to extraordinary. It's easy with your home or business. Call the Concrete Wizard and transform your place into an extraordinary space. If you're tired of looking at unsightly concrete, then bring light to your old surfaces. Call the Concrete Wizard for free design consultations, free estimates, and fast professional concrete resurfacing. And visit theconcretewizard.com for ideas from other before and after photos.
Looking for everything happening in and around Central Virginia that used to be in the morning paper? Start your day at the lynchburgportal.com. Get the latest news updates from Bill Trevero, plus up-to-date weather from VTRN's own in-house meteorologist, Matt Ferguson. So you're always in the know before you head out the door. Want to listen on the go? Stream classic hits on Rewind 103.9. Get breaking local news on WIQO, or catch the best sports talk and play-by-play on VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, all right from the portal. Looking to save? Check out insane radio deals for great local discounts. events, or explore local podcasts featuring the voices and stories that make our community special. Plus, connect with local businesses through the Lynchburg Business Alliance directory and stay in the loop on the latest events from Lynchburg Tourism. It's all right here. Local news, weather, sports, deals, and more at the lynchburgportal.com, your gateway to everything Lynchburg.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Vodka and milk. That is the analogy we are using as we welcome you back in to the Fast Lane. I don't know if you would really know a whole lot about that, TJ, with your more upstanding history, but time to get to that in some fam feedback.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, it's time for fan feedback in the Fast Lane.
Tsunami Tommy chimes in. Tsunami, Mr. Make It Rain in the club. Not make it rain, make it tsunami. Even more than making it rain in the gentleman's club, if you will. So Tsunami Tommy chimes in. I think Stevie Wonder saw this Lane Kiffin to LSU deal coming. 7 years and almost $100 million is one thing. But that NIL budget he's about to inherit is going to make the decision part 2 look even more asinine, given how we expect Lane Kiffin to use it. Look, I'll be honest. Okay, I was expecting something like the decision, something like this.
The answer to the question everybody wants to know. What's your decision?
In this fall, man, it's very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to
Baton Rouge. I was really expecting something like that from Lane Kiffin. And of course, very tough. Got to get that part in there. Take my talents to. Yes, that's what we were expecting. Instead, we just got some airport interviews instead. But this is the guy that's the drama queen. And the reality is, it'll probably be like all the relationships where people go after the good-looking, wild, crazy person. It has its moments where you're like, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. And then when it starts to unravel, it'll unravel like, well, appropriately since Tsunami Tommy brought this up, but it'll unravel like a hurricane or a tornado just ripping through everything. And honestly, I think it's probably what will happen. I think LSU, if you had to make me say, will LSU win a national championship with Lane Kiffin? I'll go yes. I think they're in such a talent-rich state. He's so appealing enough and knows how to appeal to what players really want from the monetary side of things. And he's got a scheme that has proven it can provide exciting football. I think he'll win a national title at LSU. Do I think it'll end pretty? Probably not. Does it generally end pretty with Lane Kiffin? Look at his history. Ole Miss, USC, Alabama, even though Nick Saban endorsed him afterwards, got to get that plug in for CAA and hook them up. Also, USC, the Raiders. It always ends poorly with Lane Kiffin. By the way, other people have chimed in. Melissa, and we appreciate her feedback. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as we continue with the vodka portion of the vodka and milk theme for our fan feedback. I am so pissed as an Ole Miss fan. Now I know why Tennessee hates him so much. Glad he's not allowed to coach the remaining games as he doesn't deserve it. I hope my Rebels win the national championship. Bleep Lane Kiffin and bleep that contract deal that he got where he gets paid. Boy, she's really on something. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Yeah, definitely.
Melissa added, LSU, have fun with him and all the drama that comes with him, especially when it goes south. Hey, I agree with her on that part. I think it'll be great early, but when it blows up, this is the history of Lane Kiffin. He does not care about ending his tenure in a bad time and will go so far as to make himself look like the victim in that situation. Like it is classic narcissistic, self-centered, focused behavior. Chris chimes in, by the way, on Lane as well. You can't believe one word out of Lane Kiffin's mouth. By the way, let me pause there for a second. That is the quintessential, he's willing to cheat on his wife to be with you, and then you're shocked when he cheats on you to be with someone else. Description for Lane Kiffin. He'll tell you the sweet nothings of what it takes to get what he wants out of you. Insert your mental images of that. Chris adds, so if Ole Miss let him coach, he was going to put in writing that he would absolutely refuse any Ole Miss staff and players that come knocking? That wasn't going to happen. Also, How do you trust Lane Kiffin to coach to the best of his abilities, even if he wanted to coach? Would he really want to put Ole Miss on the map with the title? The dude just needs to go fly a kite. He's going to poach as many as he can regardless of what happens. I agree with that completely from what Chris said about Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. This guy, whether he was allowed to coach or not, was going to poach. I mean, heck, his first tweet yesterday at LSU had a Trinidad and Tobago flag. Read into that what you will, given that his quarterback at Ole Miss was named Trinidad Chambliss. Now to the milk portion of this. Eddie chimes in, not me, I swear to God. Your Lane Kiffin, your Jamie Chabal, Hugh Freeze swap idea, Chabal going back to Coastal, Freeze going back to Liberty, playing off of what the fans said. That's not exactly a troll job to bring it up. First of all, a lot of Liberty fans would like to see that. Again, I don't believe that. I want to see Chabal stick it out at Liberty for another year at least, get it turned around, and go forward. And I think a lot of people who know both dynamics would agree with that sentiment. I get people that love Hugh Freeze, remember the good times, but remember, his ends were kind of like the Lane Kiffin ends at LSU, in the sense that by the end of the year, you wondered if his focus was really on your job or on the one that he really wanted, always looking for the next shiny woman, if you will. But Eddie adds in, it would actually be a smart move for all parties. Everyone returns to the place where they've had their most success. Maybe Boonesboro Country Club would even support this move by having 10 a.m. tee times daily reserved for Hugh Freeze as part of his contract. That's the snarky plug that had to come in from Eddie, but it is rather amusing when it comes to that. But I don't dispute that there's a sentiment around that. I personally, though, think Chabwell is dug into Liberty and would rather see that happen. Mikey, by the way, added on the slide at the end of the year, I agree with your take, Ed, that Ethan Vasco in the quarterback room needs some kind of overhaul. By the way, I think we're going to get some of that because Ethan Vasco's got a shoulder injury. He's going to have surgery. He'll be out 6 months. So Liberty's going to have to bring in legitimate competition because you don't know what you're going to get out of it. But Mikey adds, Liberty has to know by now that something has got to change. Vasco is who he is. They know that he's been dealing with that shoulder issue that now is going to sideline him for all of spring practice to the early portion of the summer. So do you continue to call the plays after interceptions when you're up 3 scores like we saw a couple of weeks ago and Dickens was running the ball wherever he wanted? That was the odd part. I think that's very reasonable for Mikey to bring up that reality about it, because that's one thing that Liberty needs to address as well, and that goes to the coaching and play calling during those situations. Again, I think we'll start to get to some of that, though. Thanks for the feedback, Mikey, because with Willie Korn now stepping away from coaching college football to focus on business ventures, there's going to be an opening on Jamie Chadwell's staff, and therefore you're going to have a de facto need for new blood. More feedback we'll try to get to tomorrow in the Pass Lane, plus John Manson from SeerofRed.com on the latest with the Liberty Flames. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVGM Lynchburg.
This is SportsCenter.